Welcome to the Leadership in Law podcast with host Marilyn Jenkins. Cut through the noise, get actionable insights and inspiring stories delivered straight to your ears. Your ultimate podcast for navigating the ever-changing world of law firm ownership. In each episode, we dive deep into the critical topics that matter most to you, from unlocking explosive growth to building a thriving team. We connect you with successful firm leaders and industry experts who share their proven strategies and hard-won wisdom. So, whether you're a seasoned leader or just starting your journey as a law firm owner, the Leadership in Law podcast is here to equip you with the knowledge and tools you need to build a successful and fulfilling legal practice.
Welcome to another episode of the Leadership in Law podcast. I'm your host, Marilyn Jenkins. Please join me in welcoming my guest, Nile Frater, to the show today. Nile is the founder of MASS, an innovative SEO agency that specializes in high-scale content campaigns for cutting-edge tech companies in Series A, B, C, and beyond. In just 12 months, MASS has grown from $0 to over $1.5 million in annual revenue, recurring revenue, leveraging a unique human-AI hybrid approach to SEO. Nile's journey in the tech world began in NoCode.tech, a hub for no-code movement that was acquired by A16Z-backed Stacker in 2022. With a background in engineering and coding, Nile has consistently pushed the boundaries of SEO, focusing on delivering tangible business results for startups and tech companies. Before founding MASS, Nile held a senior position at Lloyd's Banking Group in the UK, where he led various innovative projects, including recruiting 250 engineers and designers in a year and navigating the insurance division during the COVID-19 lockdowns. He also runs Concrete Capital, a micro PE fund that acquires small content and educational websites. Originally from Glasgow, Scotland, Nile now resides in Andorra and continues to be at the forefront of SEO and AI, helping startups scale quickly and efficiently. I'm excited to have you here. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. I'd forgotten some of those details about my life.
Very cool. No, I see why you moved to Andorra now after going through all you went through at Lloyd's. That had to be a lot of stress.
It was very stressful, yeah. Andorra is a much, much quieter pace of life.
Nice. So I want to talk about how you do, where you got started with the SEO and AI, because what you're doing is pretty incredible for startups and the scale of which you're building SEO content.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think a real advantage we've had is we all started our agency in 2023. And so we've kind of got to build an agency from scratch with AI already in existence. And I think there's been a lot of people who have tried to adapt AI to their agency, and that's a fair bit harder than building with AI in mind. But, from day one, we really just set out to figure out, how do you get the best out of AI? I think there's a lot of people who just use it for absolutely everything, literally prompt the AI, get an article, paste that online. And there are a lot of people who just say, I'm not going to use AI, I don't believe in it, I think it's cheating, etc. And, we don't think that's a great approach either. So yeah, from the middle, we've always just tried to balance, how do we have AI and all the benefits of AI, and how do we combine that with all the benefits of humans and really get the best thing in the middle? And that's kind of brought us to a fairly unique model where we write, really high volumes of content, but it's that real hybrid SEO approach of, AI creates it, but humans make it perfect and make it publication ready.
Okay, great. Yeah, because the pendulum does swing very far. I do like the idea of combining the two, because that's one thing that we work with is we use AI in a lot of instances, and it does help with content, but being able to, actually taking the time to review that and make sure that it makes sense, because, it also maybe doesn't give actual case data. So you have to review the data. I know that whenever we're working on presentations, it'll come up with ideas where you just need to put a case study in there. So very interesting. And so you're doing it where you're using prompts. Are you using prompts that create multiple articles at a time, and then you're going to go through and work with each article individually as a person?
No, so we try and do the opposite. One of the big problems you get with AI is if you ask it to do too much, the quality of that output drops really, really quickly. the kind of technical term for that is almost the context size. The more that you ask the AI to produce with less input, the worse it's going to output. On the flip side, if you can give it a lot of context and ask for, relatively less text in return, you're generally going to get better output. And what you mentioned there with case study, I think is one of the best examples. If you can give it a ton of existing information, existing references, existing case study, details of what you're looking for, anything at all. If you imagine that you were sitting down with a human writer and telling them, hey, this is what I want you to write about, and you had to give them all the research, the more that you can do that, the better the AI is going to perform. And so for us, we don't even just introduce or try to produce individual articles. We will actually chunk an article up and maybe go section by section. Quite often, instead of having AI produce a full article, we'll use it really as a tool for writer's block. We'll say, hey, I have to write an article about, I don't know, let's say divorce law in Utah, for example. And, I'm going to go into that with some understanding of divorce law as it's across the entirety of the United States. But there are going to be specifics there that I don't know. And rather than ask AI to generate an article on that, what I actually might do is say, hey, give me some talking points here. If I'm going to write an article and do that by myself, what should I write about? And so we'll try to chunk it up as much as we can. And we'll try to kind of find a balance between, use AI for the non-valuable information, right? So me just learning about divorce law in Utah, I'm not going to learn anything valuable there that I can't just Google or find somewhere else. The real value add comes when I do my own research, put my own opinion in, etc. GPT, any AI platform is terrible at that. What LLMs do by definition is take the average of everything that has ever been written on a topic and give you the average. And so when you spit out an article, it's going to be average. So the best thing that you can do is chunk that article up so that you're going to get the best results. Use AI to get the table stakes, the hygiene information that you need to just be able to competently understand and write something. And then ideally write the rest of it yourself. And you can do it with AI, especially if you chunk up and then piece the article together. You'll also get writing tools, kind of AI-powered tools. You might have heard of platforms like Jasper, Copy AI, this type of thing, where they will generally get a slightly better output than using something like ChatGPT. But most platforms suffer from the same thing. Trying to generate a full article at once is really difficult and very rarely gets you the results that you want.
And a lot of times it's not very readable either. And that's one of the things we strive to make something that people will be able to understand and read. Now, granted, articles for SEO don't necessarily, they're not written for everybody to read, but you still never, some people might want to read them. But when you say that AI takes like the average of everything out there, I was listening to someone speak the other day that made a very good example of that. If you ask a classroom, a kindergarten classroom, including the teacher, the same question, and they all answer the question, AI will take all 30 students and the teacher as 31 total pieces and average that and give you the answer that came as average, which is clearly not an answer you want, right? So I felt that was very, very interesting visual of saying that. Now, when we do prompting, we tell AI how to act. Is that something that in your prompting, just kind of thinking how to help people do better prompts? If I'm writing a marketing article, then I want to act as a copywriting expert in the voice of, say, Dan Kennedy or something like that. Is that something that you encourage as well, to try to raise that level of information it's going to provide you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, the more information, the more context you can give it, the better. And one of the things that's both good and bad about prompting is it's non-deterministic, right? You can put the same prompt in twice and get a totally different answer. Sometimes that's good. Sometimes, hey, I don't like that output. I'm just going to hit this again and see if it works better. Maybe I'm going to adjust a couple of things. But, you can also just really experiment with almost different personas. And for some reason, LLM respond really well to different personas. So you could try saying, yes, I'm a copywriting expert. You could also try saying, I am, a law expert. I am a lawyer, and a lawyer specialized in this subject or that subject, and really just try almost these different personalities. You can also tell GPT how to write. You can say things like, write in a very sort of conversational tone, write very casually. But what I find is actually almost most effective is you can tell it to write in the style of another website or a particular person. So this is a poor example, but let's say you want it to write in the style of Forbes and use Forbes editorial information, etc. You can tell ChatGPT, like, hey, you are a law expert writer working at Forbes, and you need to produce an article, according to Forbes editorial guidelines, so on and so forth. I think the thing that's hard for a lot of people to really conceptualize is that LLMs are trained on literally every single piece of text that is available somewhere on the internet. And so, people don't realize that you can ask an LLM anything about any book or any TV show. And it's especially impressive with TV shows because the script for every TV show, the transcripts of it are all loaded into an LLM. So you could even do something like, hey, write an article in the style of Harvey Specter from Suits, because ChatGPT knows every word that man has said and every tone indication that was put in the script. So there are a lot of things that you can do. Now, you probably don't want to write like Harvey Specter, but there may be other online publications, online websites, other law firms' websites that you like the style of, and you can ask GPT to imitate it. And generally, that is going to get you a better result than raw quoting, but actually a better result than if you try to say, hey, you're an expert copywriter, you're this, you're that. It's much easier if ChatGPT can just copy something rather than try to invent something, if that makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense. That's really good input. The LLM, for those listening, is a large language model, by the way. And I just learned not too long ago that, we all know Reddit, right? Reddit, was it 2 years ago or a year ago, was approached by OpenAI to be able to use their entire Reddit platform to teach ChatGPT. And that is global conversations on hot topics, obscure topics, all sorts of things. And that entire system was used as part of the learning of ChatGPT, which I found really amazing because it is conversational.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's literally every piece of text out there, every obscure forum, everything is going to be indexed. And one of the cool things, GPT, for example, has got better recently actually citing sources. But there are other, we talk a lot about GPT, and it's kind of like, it's a main tool in my head and that people know about in terms of AI. But there are other tools that are really interesting here. I mentioned this kind of ability to impersonate people. There is a model that came out recently to much controversy called DeepSeek, which is kind of Chinese LLM model. I believe it's totally free. I don't think it's been blocked yet. I think there's been discussion of it. Yeah. It is particularly good at prose and at imitating other writers. We've generally found that DeepSeek has a little bit better of a content out than something like GPT. Specifically for law, where I think it's most interesting is a platform called Perplexity, which is a sort of AI-powered search platform. GPT does this now as well, but Perplexity is generally better at it and has a better interface. And what makes it particularly good is you can ask it a question, tell me about this, tell me about that, and it will answer you, but it will tell you the exact source where it pulled the text for everything. And it generally does it a little bit better than GPT does. And so if you are, if you're using GPT to do research, for example, you're trying to find, you can use Perplexity to really actually find those citations. And it's a really good way to avoid AI hallucinations and just have a little bit more confidence that what you're looking up, what you're researching is actually real and not imagined by GPT,
Mm-hmm. Right. And one of the things that a lot of people use GPT for, and we say GPT because I think it was the number one brand that came out. Yeah, it had a lot of money behind the brand when it came out. So I really prefer Claude when I'm looking at doing articles and stuff. It feels so much more human written. I mean, it's easier to read. But I think gone are the days where you had to give ChatGPT a list of 120 some odd words not to use. But, as you can tell, it does tend to use more higher education language unless you specify for it not to. Thinking about the DeepSeek and the ChatGPT. So I do a lot of webinars for my audience, and I'm looking to do a webinar that's probably 20, 25 minutes. It's I don't like to make the webinars too long. And so putting together what I want to include, I did the same prompt in Claude, ChatGPT, and DeepSeek to come up with the outline. And DeepSeek went actually a step further. So, but all the the processes, the presentation outlines were very, very similar, as you would imagine. But when DeepSeek went one step further and wanted to niche the presentation instead of it being a generic AI presentation, and once I said, yeah, let's do it for law firms, it literally listed all of the tools by name and website and pricing and categorize them that's available to law firms. So I thought that was very interesting, but the content, the output was similar, but I used the exact same prompt on each one of them. So, but that was enlightening to compare those and see the difference.
Yeah, it's interesting, not even just in the different platforms, but if you look at something like GPT, if you're using it, up the top left, there's a little section you can select all these different models. And the speed at which they're releasing these new models is super quick. So every model is either smarter or it approaches a problem in a new way. There is, they brought out one recently, I think it's called O1. They have a terrible naming convention. I think it's called O1, and it reasons through problems. It's really not my favorite for generating articles and everything like that. It doesn't do it very well, but it's very good at just reasoning through. If you want to ask it a question or how to approach something, it's really good for that. And then GPT brought out this feature recently called Deep Research. I don't know if you've had a chance to try that. It is easy good. So GPT will essentially disappear for 10 minutes, up to 30 minutes sometimes. Really, really deeply, as the name suggests, deeply research a particular topic. That will come back with citations, it will come back with charts. It comes back with a bunch of information that you're never going to get from a normal GPT prompt. What this is really, really good for in particular is doing article research or doing SEO research. Often when we're writing articles, we are either doing like a kind of guide around something like a kind of how-to, or we're doing like a roundup, here are the top 10 tools for law firms who want to market their company. And those can be really, really time consuming. You have to get a lot of detail. Normal GPT will often get things wrong because sometimes it will go and do a web search and pull legitimate new information. Other times it's relying on, hey, 12 months ago it got trained on the pricing page for this tool and now that information's out of date. So it's not necessarily hallucinated, it's just out of date. Deep research is much, much better at pulling all that information in. And you can literally just give it a prompt, go make a coffee, come back, and it's in front of you. It's literally 3 weeks old, I think. So it's not even really transformed SEO yet, but I think it's going to be a really transformational feature.
Interesting. I haven't not played with that one yet. I am pretty impressed with what a lot of people have done in building their own GPTs and then outside of that, using Make to try to have things work. And GPT does something, creates a folder on Google or on Drive and stuff like that. But that's kind of getting in the weeds. So let's jump over to the SEO way of, because one of the things that you talked about, you do SEO for focusing on client acquisition as opposed to just traffic. Let's talk a little bit about that. What's your process in that?
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, traffic is obviously key for any SEO growth. You need traffic in order to be able to convert it. For us, we're really, really focused on traffic that is likely to convert. And what I mean by that is, let's say that you are selling a phone, for example, because it's sitting right in front of me. Best example I can come up with. If you just Google the word iPhone, that has so many different intents, right? It could mean I want to know what the latest iPhone is. I want to know what an iPhone is. I want to see the price of an iPhone, etc. Or someone could Google buy iPhone, and that intent is so much, much clearer. They want to purchase an iPhone, they want to know the price of it, etc., etc. Everyone knows, I think, at this point that SEO is centered around keywords, and really any keyword which someone's going to Google, all of these have an intent. And it's something that I see people in SEO miss so frequently, especially if you're new to SEO, especially if you're not an expert, is, you'll just think up, hey, I'm a law firm in New York. What are some of the terms I'm going to look up? Law firm, New York. Well, that's going to be pretty hard to rank for because it's going to be so competitive. It's so broad. Do you want a law firm specialized in divorce? Do you want one specialized in, injuries? Is it actually you want a law firm who are going to help you set up a company? These things are so, so different. And so when you're doing SEO, you really have to figure out who are your audience, who are the specific people that you sell to best. And, by the way, it might be that you are a really broad law firm and you cover a lot of different kind of practices and specialities, great, but pick one of them and start there first. And so this is what we do with our clients. We figure out what is the one most niche audience that we can go after, and we want to start as small as possible. And what we tend to want to do, most of our clients are not so much looking locally; they tend to be more national firms. And so what we want to do there is figure out what is every question that a potential customer might have on this subject. We want to kind of approach that from every angle, and that will then give us, hey, here are 10 questions that someone's going to have about this. Then let's go and find those 10 keywords that people are actually Googling, and then let's write some content that is going to answer that. And we genuinely want to answer that question. We don't want to kind of say, hey, you should phone us and we'll answer the question, or you should email us. We want to answer the question as quickly as possible, right at the top of the article, get into the details, and then say, by the way, if you need more professional help with this, if you want to consult in this, now here's the phone number. And I think a lot of people get that the wrong way around. They think about it in the same way that you would think about PPC or ads. Well, let me capture the customer and then let me educate them and let me extract value there. SEO is really about giving value up front and then extracting value for yourself further down the line. Now that changes a little bit with local SEO, which I can get into in a second. But the core of SEO is always, let me figure out my buyer, let me figure out what they want, and then let me create some kind of experience that helps them, and that's typically going to be content. And that's where AI is super helpful, is, creating that content, helping you figure out what that particular niche audience wants, helping you figure out what questions they might have, again, this research process that's really good for, and then ultimately, delivering that value as quickly as you can up front, and then you can worry about capturing the customer.
I love that. So one of the things that we coach on in our agency is the FAQs. Like every business has frequently asked questions. Every client has, a potential client has the same questions, right? So make an article on each one, make a video on each one. And that way you are educating and providing content at the same time. So that's very good. Now, with your SEO process, and do you actually do backlinks? Are you talking about doing the SEO, the articles on the website? What types of distribution are you doing? And I know you do it in a massive scale, but if you give us a little insight on that.
Yeah, for sure. And it's, it's broadly applicable both at the massive scale and at the kind of smaller scale. And when you start to go local in particular, you can get big results with really not a huge amount of output. So, for us, first of all, there are two concepts in SEO that we care about. One of those is topical authority, and one of them is domain authority. Domain authority is one that I think a lot of people hear more of when they first get into SEO. And it's this idea of, on an imaginary scale of kind of 0 to 100, how much does Google view you as an authoritative website? So BBC.com, Forbes.com, these are right at the top of that scale. They're authoritative, people trust them, they're credible, they've got decades of history. And then if you launch a new website tomorrow, nobody knows who you are, nobody knows what your website's about, Google's never heard of it, so on and so forth. So your domain authority is low. The primary way that you're going to build domain authority, really the only way you're going to build domain authority, is by building backlinks. And ideally you want those to be backlinks from reputable websites who, you're almost borrowing their domain authorities.
Right.
Ideally, you want these to be from relevant websites. So if you're a law firm, you get a link from, I don't know, McDonald's, terrible example. It's not very relevant, If you can get, linked to from, an academic law journal, something like that, that is going to be much, much more valuable. And actually, the kind of, the academic system of citing papers, citing, things, and then kind of using that as a measure of how authoritative or how credible was this paper, was this discovery or this insight, that's really the same system that Google's trying to use, this idea that if you get featured in an academic journal, lots of people cite your paper, then you are doing well. Google is exactly the same. Other concept is topical authority, and this is one that's less talked about, but I actually think is more powerful. And it's become, for anyone who pays attention to SEO, we kind of had Armageddon for SEOs in September 2023, where Google released a massive algorithm update and it killed a lot of really small websites. There's a lot of speculation over exactly what happened there, but our belief at Mass, and we, this belief has powered a lot of growth, is that essentially Google started looking less at how good is an individual article and more at how authoritative is this website on a particular topic. So, if you're a law firm and you want to find, clients for, accidents, you're an accident attorney, for example, the best thing that you can do is write everything there is to write about, law, examples of what happens if you get in an accident, how much compensation can you see, what should you do when it happens, so on and so forth. Any questions someone's going to have, kind of what I talked about earlier, you want to answer those questions. You want to cover them in as much detail as possible. And an example I like to give here is, if you're a travel website and you're writing about Paris, everybody knows that you have to write what are the best restaurants in Paris, what are the best hotels in Paris. But what you should be really doing is niching down and writing what are the best restaurants for vegan families. What are the best restaurants, or which restaurants have the best desserts? Really, really going into depth that no one else does. And the more that you write, you can go after these keywords that have a volume of 20 people searching for them. You're never going to get very many customers from them. But the more that you write for these small keywords, the more that Google's going to give you a shot to go after these larger, bigger keywords. And whether you're doing massive scale SEO like we are, or you're doing, really deep local SEO, that is always going to be true. And it's going to be easier the smaller that you are,
I love that. Yeah, you're right. I mean, be very descriptive, be very detailed. And, years ago when we were starting PPC, that was the thing, is buy those buying keywords, and so you're saying the same thing, build out the content around buying keywords and be educational about it. I love that. Yeah, absolutely. So this has been absolutely incredible. I really appreciate the detail and the way that you are using AI and building SEO content, and for sharing that information with us. I know that some of the listeners are going to want to reach out to you and connect with you. Where's the best place to do that?
Yeah, so you can find our website, which is that's mass with an E, .marketing. You can also reach me. I am Nile at mass-seo.com. You can reach me there. I'd be happy to help.
Fantastic. Now, thank you so much for your time today. This has been very interesting, and I just really appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. I've really enjoyed being on.
Thanks for joining me today for this episode. As we wrap up, I'd love for you to do two things. First, subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss an episode. And if you find value here, I'd love it if you would rate it and review it. That really does make a difference in helping other people to discover this podcast. Second, you can connect with me on LinkedIn to keep up with what I'm currently learning and thinking about. And if you're ready to take the next step with a digital strategist to help you grow your law firm, I'd be honored to help you. Just go to lawmarketingzone.com to book a call with me. Stay tuned for our next episode next week. Until then, as always, thanks for listening to Leadership in Law Podcast, and be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts so you don't miss the next episode.
Thanks for joining us on another episode of the Leadership in Law Podcast. Remember, you're not alone on this journey. There's a whole community of law firm owners out there facing similar challenges and striving for the same success. Head over to our website at lawmarketingzone.com. From there, connect with other listeners, access valuable resources, and stay up to date on the latest episodes. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. Until next time, keep leading with vision and keep growing your firm.